What's up, LA? It's your guy, Shovon Walker, and I'm your host of Grindla, where we let you into the lives of some of LA's finest on their grind. Today, our special guest is Chef Vinny from the Honey Kettle.
Well, here we are at Honey's Kettle, huh, Tony?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be able to do this with you. And, I'm an open book. Ask any question, all questions, and I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you for welcoming us into your restaurant. And I want to say you're helping make a dream come true for me. That's the most important thing. And that's why you're my special guest. So how did you get the Honey Kettle started?
In 1973, I got out of high school and didn't have any clue what I wanted to do in my future. It was like walking out of the back door of my parents' house into the world and not knowing, well, where do I go from here? I got a job through a friend of mine whose brother was running a chicken plant in LA. And they always needed people to come for a graveyard shift job processing chicken for a chain of restaurants by the name of Golden Bird in LA. And I remember distinctly in front of our house, he said, "Hey, man, my brother got an opening. You want to work?" I said, "Yeah, man." "So what am I going to be doing?" He said, "You'll be processing chicken." I'm like, I didn't have any idea what that looked like, right? So I remember telling my father I was going to go to school at Pasadena City College in the daytime, and I'm going to be doing this graveyard shift job in the night. His first reaction was, "I just want you to concentrate on school," as most parents do.
Would.
Right. And, but school isn't for everybody. And particularly for students like myself who didn't work hard at school. I did what everybody else did. I kind of dumbed it down. I was more concerned with being cool and more concerned with, getting interested in girls and all that kind of stuff. So school wasn't really my thing. And so I had to go to Pasadena City College, which is an excellent college. In fact, I recommend it for people who are like me to keep your continuing education.
Okay.
But I was too busy talking about it was the 13th grade because I had a cousin who went to Stanford and he was going to Stanford. And I'm thinking, here I am at City College and he's off to Stanford and all I can see is we're going to go our own separate ways. But anyway, to bring it on back, so I did this graveyard shift job for many years, cold in the warehouse, ice on the floor, the boots always had holes in them. But I was learning something. You know how you just by having your eyes open, you're learning something.
Right.
Just learning stuff. And so a group of guys and I, we would go out there. Half the time we'd fall asleep in the restaurant before we would ever get started. And then it messed up my school because I get into class late. I'm all tired. And then going back to my father, it was like him telling me, "Hey, son, your mother's going to give you some money." Like, so how's that going to work? I'm a grown man.
Right.
How am I going to ask you for every $5 I need? That's not going to work.
Right.
So I'm going to go to school and I'm going to work a job. And that's what I did. Around 5 years later, the company was growing and they got a warehouse in Culver City. And my friend went on to manage the restaurants. And then he nominated me to become, to succeed it. So I became the warehouse manager, the first warehouse manager.
Okay.
And at that time, it changed my life. A guy the guy by name of Willie J. Stenners, who had founded the company, was a very prominent member of Los Angeles society.
Mm-hmm.
He was the guy who financed all the up-and-coming politicians. So the first day I met him, the reason why I'm saying this, because the first day I met him, I had this automatic response when I introduced myself. I said, "Hi, my name is Vincent Williams, and I'm running the warehouse. And he looked up at me so serious, and he said, son, you got a critical job. And I felt myself at that moment, Tony, saluting him like, sir. And I felt myself even clicking my heel.
Right.
Sir, I'll do whatever it takes. Fast forward it to now. I'm still doing whatever it takes.
And that's cool.
And now I have Honey's Kettle. So that was my start.
Okay, now that you have Honey's Kettle, I know that Honey's Kettle originally was in Compton, and now you're in Culver City. How was that transition, or why did that transition happen?
I got a chance in 1983. Remember, I graduated from 73. By 83, I had become sort of his protege. I was his understudy. Everything he said, I listened to. Everything I saw him do, every movie, for some reason, I said, one day I want to be like that guy. And, that's kind of how a lot of times it starts. And then one day you see somebody you're really inspired by, say, I want to be like him when I grow up. So I got an opportunity to own the first franchise. Because I was in the meetings when they were saying, well, we want to franchise the company. And we need a first franchisee, which usually comes out of the company. I raised my hand, said, I'll be that person. And so he gave me an opportunity to take over a restaurant that was failing. It was actually, they were about to close.
What was that? That was Goldenberg.
That was the Goldenberg. Okay. And it was on Alondra Boulevard in Compton.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And so he said, hey, you think you can do something with it? I was 27 years old. Well, I mean, you're talking about lifting the world? Not a problem. I can do it. And I said yes to him. Even though I knew it was failing, it was an opportunity of a lifetime. The idea of the first person owning a franchise of the Golden Bird, which had been around like 40 years, right. I'm going to be that person. I'm going to be that person. Right. And I remember in the meetings with the lawyers and consultants, they said, well, you're going to be a guinea pig. And I didn't quite know what guinea pig meant, but I learned later on what they meant by that. Do you know, Tony, the first week, all the way to now, 42 years later, I've been running for my life.
Really?
Yeah, it was just that hard.
Really?
It was an impossible dream. There's no way I should have survived even that first year. And it was because the thing was failing, so that was why they were going to close it. Meaning that the bills are too heavy and the money coming in is too low. What you going to do about that? That's an impossible equation.
So what did you do in the process? What did you do? Because here we are now, Honey Kettle, success. What did you do in that sense to get here now?
As I reflect on it, I looked at it like that was my college education. That was the school of hard knocks. Right. I was in Compton. I was in a very depressed area. Right. And a crime-ridden area of Compton. It was the school of hard knocks, but I got the greatest education. Yeah, it was like the laboratory. Every great company starts in the laboratory.
Right.
People start them in their garage. Didn't which one was it? Apple or what? Did Steve Jobs start that in his garage?
Yeah, I think Steve Jobs and Bill Gates.
Yeah, it's like they started tinkering in their garage. And then later on, they put it out in the society and say, hey, I got a business now. Well, that was what that Compton experience was. It was the greatest experience I could have had. I was going south the whole time, meaning that
it was a struggle.
It was
the whole
beyond the struggle. The money just didn't add up, which meant that I got to keep filling these holes. So thank God my wife was a professional woman and she earned a good income. And I got to admit, I kind of started stealing money out of her bank account.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Well, that's what
to survive, right?
You got to survive.
Right.
And there's a couple of things I have to say about my father, which, he's now gone. But that man told me a story about our people in Louisiana that just really resonated with me. he said that in Louisiana, our family was the best people at surviving. I was like, what does that mean? He says, like, when the winters, would come, we always had a storehouse. We had our smokehouse full of meat. We had grown all our vegetables. So they were the best at surviving. And other people around the community would come to them when their supplies got low. What does that mean to a kid when a father tells them something like that? That's my DNA. That means I'm supposed to be able to survive. The same way, right? And another story he told me, I always like to get this one out. I played baseball and when I was 14, I was doing really well. And I played in the league. I led the league in hitting and had most home runs and best pitching record. And we were in the All-Star. And we had won this one section of time, and then we were going to the next one in Montebello, somewhere like that. But my arm ran out of gas. So these kids in Montebello were just bombing me, man. First inning, first guy, first pitch, ball out the park, into the next yard. Man, it devastated me, man. I'm in there on the mound. I can't get through this first inning, man. And I cried like a baby, man, telling the coach, you got to take me out of here. He takes me out. We go home, we ride home, nothing is said at all in the car. You know how sometimes it's too early to tell somebody when they're under some emotional strain. Right. It's not time to teach them now. Right. So he waited till we got home. He sat me down and said, son, the line, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. Right. You can even get beat. But one thing you can't do in life, you can't. Yeah, you can't at all. You can't quit. You can't quit. Take me out on a gurney, but don't quit. Right. I'll be back. I'm coming back. I'll be back. And that's that sustained me through all those years, through the 80s, in the 90s. And then by 1999, the family had gotten themselves in financial trouble. The old man had passed on. I had a franchise, but I was always having problems. And then the supplies started getting shaky. I couldn't buy my supplies. And that's when I started tinkering in the kitchen, learning how to develop products. And I would test, throw it away, test again. And I just, through that process, I was beginning to learn how to make products. And so this part of the story is also the inspiration part. So I go to the matriarch one morning to have coffee with her. I said, I'm going to come over and have coffee with you. And I went to see Mrs. Stennis, and we sat up, and I said, is there anything I can do? Because I was like the ultimate company man. Is there anything I can do to help save the company? And she told me no. That she said, Vincent, she basically gave me her blessing. She said, Vincent, you got to find something for yourself and your family. This is too far gone. There's nothing we can do about it. And I promised her at that moment that I would go out and I will figure this out, and I'm going to do something so great that I'm going to come back. I'm going to pick this torch up and I'm going to take it somewhere. And then it happened. This location, we were driving by, my wife and I, one morning, looking for a place for breakfast, saw a raggedy police sign in the window. I said, how could that be police? Right. I remember this area. I worked in this area. This is prime. Yeah, it couldn't be possible. We turned around the corner, came back, called the phone number, and met a guy named Gus Problem. We talked about this earlier. It's not what you know, it's who you know. It is super on steroids who you know. Right. So I meet Gus Prado, a Cuban refugee, came here with the shirt on his back, with a car on a one-way trip. His father had given him some money in his pocket, said, go find something in America. Guy drove and landed in Culver City when the car calmed down. Went, got an apartment building in Culver City, and the lady said, well, you can move in now. She said, go get your stuff. Let's go. No, he said, I got my stuff. I got everything. I got my shirt on my back. Right. And he started from there, and that dude worked, man, and worked and worked. and got an opportunity. He was in those meetings when people were talking about, oh, this city will never come back. It's dead. He was in there, I know he was sweeping the floors.
Glitchy. Like to fly on the wall.
And Gus told the guy who owns this building, he said, well, you don't think it's going to work, right? I think I can do something with it. He bought this building and 2 other buildings across the street. So, and he bought the building that the lady leased to. The landlord who rented the building, he bought that building.
That's right.
Now, you know what kind of sacrifice that man had
to make.
And that dude was working probably 18 hours
every penny.
Everything. He did not spend any money. Everything came in, he said. It's like, I just need food and water. That's all I need. And something over my head.
Sometimes I believe that sometimes that's what it takes, though, to be successful. You have to have that drive to say, well, I'm going to make this ultimate sacrifice to make my dream come true. And it sounds like that's what he did, and it sounds like that's what you done.
That's right.
So what advice would you give somebody, say, just starting out in the business, in whatever field they're in, when they go through struggles, that'll keep them motivated to keep going, that the dream is possible? What would you tell them?
I would tell them one thing for sure. If you're in the game, stay in the game. You can be behind by 15 runs, but if the game is still going on, you got a chance to come back. And I remember one time I told some kids, and they were playing baseball, and they were up against a team that just walked on the field and looked like they're gonna kick our butts. We already know it. We might as well lay down and die. And I went in before they started the game, and I told the kids, look, this is what life is about. Get in the game first. You can't say I lost before I even started. Get in the game. And here's the secret. Keep the score close. If they get 5 runs, that inning, you need to get 2 runs. If they get 2 more runs, you need to get 1 more run. Keep the game close. And I saw it happen. It was amazing the way they did this. Because as the game went on, they did score 5 runs in the first inning, but they trimmed off 2. And then they did score 2 more runs, and they trimmed off 1. And then one inning, they got 3 runs, and the other team got 2 runs. So they're starting to catch up. And as I watched them, they got closer and closer. And then the other team folded because the team stayed in the game. They kept playing. And as they played, they inspired themselves. Guys who couldn't hit the ball, all of a sudden were hitting the ball. Guys making great catches, guys making great runs. They inspired themselves. And that's my story. I inspired myself, man. When the chips got down, I'm going to tell you, you know how the Bible always talks about these parables, like, something, comparison to something else. Right. How Jesus spoke in parables. I found myself always thinking about parables. Like, one was, I think about creating a mirage in the desert, and I would see this water in the desert, and I'm crawling right to get to it. But it was a self-created mirage. Right. It wasn't really water, but it kept me going long enough to get to where I thought the water was. Then I find it be just same old hot sand. But I got that much first.
So would you say that for somebody in business or just in life, period, that are trying to achieve a goal or anything, that the point of it is to say, I don't need to keep going, but like, for me personally, I could say at some point, like me doing this podcast right now, I thought it was impossible. I didn't know where it would go. But I said to myself, I had to believe in myself to make it happen. And then along the way, I met people because I kept pushing and I kept pushing and I kept thinking of it daily. And I met people along the way who said, no, it's obtainable. I got you. I can help you do this. I can help you do that. And here we are right now. So for the everyday person that may feel like, hey, nobody believes in me. Would you say that it's very important they have to believe in themselves and they'll attract the people who will help and believe in their dream?
A lot of people call that passion. It's also called purpose. See, you have to have a purpose-driven life.
Right.
You got to dream something so hard that you can make mountains move because you believe something so hard. That's how I was able to get through those years in Compton. And even the years here in Culver City, it's because I believed so hard in what I was doing. If you don't believe in what you're doing, quit right now because that ain't going to work. You have to have passion, desire, and purpose. And you've got to let those things be the things that drive you to do what you do. Because I did that in Compton, in the little thing in Compton, I was granted a bigger thing. Like if you can be a ruler over a small thing, then I can make you a ruler over greatness. Right. But let's see how you do when you're with the small. When you have that little job, you just the janitor.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you're sweeping floors. One person might sweep the floor like, man, I'm just trying to get a check. Next guy got his heart and soul. He ain't just sweeping the floor. He's cleaning the handles and the glass. It's always that one that's putting in all the effort that is the one that rewards himself. Because I didn't understand how I wound up in Culver City. I'm like, how did this happen?
Right.
It's because I was being watched on what I was willing to do in Compton. And I was willing to do whatever it took. Just as I told my boss. And I just did whatever it took. And I cried in my heart all the time. I had to put a straight face on everywhere I went. But in my heart, I was bleeding. I had to be a man in front of my sons, especially my sons,
Right.
because a broken father can. That's how the sons really have problems.
Yeah, you pass that down to
you
them.
will pass that brokenness down to your kid.
Right.
So I always, no matter how hard it was, I always tried to make sure I was there for them. And I was like a man who was taking his blow, but he's still standing. And and they heard me, and they knew I was in the room crying. They knew I was like I was losing it, And they were like, "Man, my dad." I remember my son one time. I was in the car, and I was like, "Man," he was in the car seat, and he was like, "Oh man," I'm sitting there, "Oh man," I'm just shaking my head, and like, "Daddy, you okay?" I'm like, "Man, Daddy's not doing well." And he said, "Daddy, you're gonna be all right." And that the little kids even saying that.
They hear that from him.
They hear me. You're gonna be all right. Later on, that same kid became a grown man, and Dad was down again, so low, couldn't figure out what to do. My arms were weak. I couldn't even lift my arms anymore. And he stepped in and called his friends and rallied something like $5,000 that I needed to plug the hole through his friends. Because he said, "Dad, you got to keep throwing the ball against the wall."
You got to. That's a fact.
And so you see how these things, people, kids picking up their father and fathers picking up their sons. Yeah, this is part of the program.
That's why it's important to instill those things into your children. Because at some point you'll need them, or they'll be that inspiration to you, or that get up and go. Still, when you feel down or whatever. I've known you since I was a kid.
Right.
And this is truly a pleasure for me to be able to interview you. But I remember I talked to you before, and you informed me about a time when you were having a struggle, when you were able to speak with a homeless man. Can you elaborate on that story for me?
That story I told you about, we called him the leprechaun.
Yeah.
The leprechaun, even I'm fascinated by this story because I was like, how could somebody who had depended on social services, like, you get general relief, housing subsidies. This guy knew how to work that system. But he had one time been a drug addict.
Right.
But then his new drug became $100 bills. He would never break once he got to $100 bill, he would never break it. So they gave him general services. He'll eat cereal all the time because he wanted to get $100 bill put together. And so he had a collection of $100 bills. And one day he was over my house, and I was introduced to him through another guy I had been working with. And they were talking, and they said, "Man, do you know this guy? He got $13,000 just collecting $100 bills." I said, "Oh my God!" I looked at my wife and said, well, "Why did they tell me that?" Anybody around me, don't tell me you got that money.
I'm trying to figure out how to get it.
I was in Syria. I was behind on my house nose, and I said, "Hey, David, can we talk?" And I proposed to him that I needed like $13,000 or something like right around that amount. And I said, "I'll pay you back 10% interest, and I'll do exactly what I said I'm gonna do. Your word is your bond. Absolutely. Be sure to honor your word." So I had been practicing that all along, right? When I tell people something I'm gonna do what I tell them. And if I can't do what I tell them, I'm going to come back to them before they call me and tell them something came up that I need more time.
Right.
But I never ignored phone calls until I owe somebody money. So he trusted me enough to say, I'm going to do this, but I know where you live. And nigga, I'm real cute. And that was serious. It was serious. It was serious. It took him a long time to collect that kind of money.
Right.
And so it started there. And I did exactly what I told him I was going to do. It didn't take long because he couldn't leave it out that long.
Right.
But then I needed it again. So I got in this habit of needing $4,000 because in business, what happens if you don't start with capital, you always hear that word capital.
Yeah.
If you don't start with a bank account this big, you're in trouble right away.
Right.
If you start out with zero, you'll be chasing your tail the whole time.
Yeah, because in business, it'll eat the money up fast.
It's like ice.
Right.
It'll melt on you immediately. So he would help plug these holes and make 10%. And so he now has, if he gave me 4,000, now he has 400 more $100 bills.
So it was just a good investment for him.
It was a good investment for him. Right. The funny thing is, a couple of times I got in a situation where I needed, like I might have paid off, $1,500 or $2,000 of it, and I needed some more. And that's where he was draw a line. He said, "Man, that's money on top of money." I was like, "What does that mean?"
Right.
He said, "Man, I'll lose track like that. Right. Let's take care of this one thing at a time. You take care of this, you get more. Take care of that, you get more." That happened for me about 3 years now. And, if you talk about a businessman going and basically, humbling myself and going down in the downtown area, and he had a little hiding place. That guy we called him the leprechaun. He was really an angel.
That's cool. That's a cool story.
Right? And you would never know. Right. You just lined up a million of people and say, "Can any one of you give me a dime?" And that, you would never know.
This is why now I've learned myself not to look at people, no matter where they're at in life, to look down on it. Whether it's a bum in front of the store, whatever you want to call a homeless person or an unhoused person in front of a store or someone begging for money, you just never know who they are or what they can impress in your life.
That's right. So how they got there. You don't know the story behind the story of how that happened to them. And another thing, Tony? Any one of us could be. All of us are that person.
That person.
For the grace of God, love of your mother, father, or whoever, your grandmother praying for you and all that. For that's any one of us. And all the years I was in business and have been in business, I never looked at myself as anybody above being that person.
Right.
Because I felt so many times I was going to wind up that person.
Right.
Because how life will do you. Beat you down so hard that eventually you can't get up in the morning anymore and go at it. You just like first it starts where you stop showering. Then you're not eating right, and then you're sleeping all the time. You're always tired, because your life is beating you down. And then eventually you just start curling up in a fetal position. You can't do nothing about it. I have no strength to do. I felt like that as a businessman. So I've always been connected with this people that have struggled like that because I feel like I'm one of them.
Okay, so now the show is called Grind LA. What does grind mean to you? What does that mean to you as far as in the business?
Yeah. Grind I don't know how you came up with that name, but it's a perfect name to explain it. How did you come up with that name?
Actually, I had another company, and I'm always, me personally, I'm always on my grind about something, whether it was school, whether it was to get a dollar, job to job. Like now, I got 2-3 jobs. This is not heavily funded right now. I'm working jobs. We all are working. Everybody involved in here is working at 9 to 5.
Yeah.
To survive. And that's our grind until we can get to the next level. But the grind doesn't stop. It keeps going. So that's what this show is all about. It's all about opening the stories to those people who are on their grind, whatever field you're in, whether it's if you're a mechanic, if you're a musician, if you have a taco truck or some kind of food truck, or even if it's an organization that you started from the ground because you had this certain passion for people, we're all on our grind daily.
I love that word. And I'll tell you my relationship to that word came playing chess one time with a guy. And he was talking about me and my business. And I said, man, it always feels like I'm always in a vertical climb. And he said, man, you're just in the grind. And what he meant by that was that it's like to get to the summit in life, the hardest part is the grind part. It's the grind when you're going vertical, straight up. And so that word means a lot to me. I never forgot that lesson is that it was always hard, but when you're trying to get to success, to summit, that's when the grind really gets hard.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good word.
So at this point, what advice, or can I say, what you could sum it up in one thing? What would you tell someone who was going through a hard time right now? They're on the edge. They're whatever their grind is, they're on the edge and they feel like maybe this is not for me or they want to quit. What would you tell them to have them keep going?
Stop the wishful thinking. Wishful thinking tells you that I wish this would have happened for me. I wish that wouldn't have happened to me. Stop the wishful thinking and get about your business. It's like the person who commits suicide. And the day that they got so low that they were willing to do that, the next day could have been a miracle. So you gotta keep on going. You gotta keep on pushing, keep on grinding, like you said, because you're gonna keep grinding till you get a breakthrough. And breakthroughs don't happen every day.
Right.
They happen periodically. But you gotta show yourself approved. What are you doing? What are you doing? Are you, like I always say about my business, if I don't go to the front of this business, to the back of the business, side to side, and look at everything we're doing and everything we need to improve, because every day is about what can I do today to make things better than it was yesterday. If you're not doing that, if you're not evolving as a person, and you're not setting your sights high enough, don't expect anything. Nothing's going to happen. Don't sit there and smoke a pipe and say, I wish I was Kendrick Lamar. Right. Kendrick Lamar became Kendrick Lamar because he was working at his thing all the time. Right. With everybody who is successful.
What I think too, not to cut you off, but what I think too, a lot of people see success and they don't understand the backstory. That this wasn't just This didn't just happen out of nowhere.
Right.
This person has been working, struggling, ups and downs, making sacrifices to get to that success.
Right.
But not only when you get to the success, it's very difficult to get to the success plateau and keep the success, which me personally, I think is the hardest part.
Yeah.
Once you achieve success, how do you keep it?
Right.
And some people don't know how to keep. They make this. They get to successful. That's why you see what I say about one hit wonders or stuff like that.
Right.
They may not know how to keep going.
Right. Right.
And that's the difficult part. So how did you keep going?
Well, first, I don't feel like I'm successful. To tell the truth, I don't feel I have been successful at some things, like product development.
Mm-hmm.
I've been successful at that. Attracting a wide audience of customers. I've been successful at that. But I haven't reached the ultimate success because I haven't mastered every part of my business.
Right.
I mastered, like, business is like weeds are growing around you all the time. You better be knocking those weeds down, like, right away. Well, for years, weeds were just taking me over.
Mm.
And I just now feel like I'm starting to cut enough of them away so I can see a path towards success. But I'm not there yet because I haven't mastered every aspect of the business. The last aspect is how to make the money work.
Mm.
Because, every day in business, you're making liabilities. Every day you wake up, it's a new liability.
Right.
Some you can predict, some you can't predict. Most of them you can't predict. That'll throw you off. So what I've done is I keep telling myself I'm working towards being a success. And that it's not like I reach a plateau and say, hey, now I'm successful. I'm going to always be working towards success, which means I'm working to sustain the success. The ground I made, I'm trying to protect that ground. Mm. So it never stops.
So it's a continuous thing.
And another thing I experienced when I used to drive up and down the streets just thinking about business, I have this feeling like business is like a two-sided, in our lives are like a two-sided coin. On the one side, if everything is terrible and hard and just impossible, you ought to count that as joy. You know why? Because if you flip the coin, the other side is going to be that much greater. It's like if it's average on one side, it'll be average on the other. Mm. The harder it is that you overcome things, you flip the coin and voila, you're a tremendous success, So as I went through all these years, the one thing I didn't sacrifice is like I was put on a journey to find out how to make a brand for today's world. Mm-hmm. That journey started in 1983. The first week I was in trouble, right? I went out in this journey with nothing in my toolkit except for youth, hard work, determination, and an unwillingness to quit. That was the tools I had.
That's what it takes.
I didn't have capital. They say the number reason why people are unsuccessful in business, they don't have enough capital, they don't have enough know-how, and they don't have credit, and they have poor record keeping. I had all those things,
right.
But they weren't tools. They were the things that were bringing me down.
Right.
And so what do I have when you don't have the tools of success, like McDonald's or any of these companies that got, more money than God? What you have is your talent. I have a talent for creating products. I learned that. It was self-taught. It was a survival technique. And I kept saying, if I don't mess up on that part, I have a chance to win. Because if I can be better than everybody else around me, and I can make nothing but superior products, in the end, that's going to be what wins. So I never went to like buying cheaper chicken or cheaper oil or, shortcuts. I never went to any shortcuts. If anything, I would double down on the products and saying, well, this isn't expensive enough. This ingredient going in is too cheap. I would go with the more expensive one.
Right.
Because I wanted to make a product that would resonate in people's mind and make them come back and tell everybody they know. And now with the internet, you can tell everybody in an instant, everybody
in a message, in a tweet.
I didn't have that in the 80s. Right. In the 90s, it wasn't like that. But so that's one of the things that I always recommend. If you're good at something, your obligation is to get better at it. And if you're better at something, you got to get better than that. You cannot rest on your laurels until you're so damn good that there's nobody else even can come close to you. And that's what I set as a benchmark. I want to be the greatest American restaurant, not soul food, an American restaurant, right? The greatest American restaurant, past, present, future. That's my ultimate goal. And if I set that as my ultimate goal, if I fall short, I'll still be doing pretty good.
Definitely will.
But this is how I've learned to practice my life. So I raised, Tony, we talked about this.
Right.
I raised my average from a C- to an A+.
That's where we're trying to get to. Right now, that's how I feel. I'm trying to get my level to the A+.
The A+.
A++.
And we would both recommend that if I had to do it over again, I'd be in that books, man.
Well, that's one of the questions I was going to ask you. If you had to do anything over again, what would you do different, if so?
You know how they say if you, I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change anything. And people will say that, but you really would have changed a lot of things. Right. If I knew what I knew I was going to go through before I started, I would have never started. Because I didn't know I was going to have to go visit hell to get this knowledge. I was going to have to go straight to the pit of hell and pull this knowledge out of the pit of hell and then get back to earth. And so the whole idea of this effort that I put into it is that, it takes sometimes that kind of real sacrifice. To learn something the hard way is the best way. And so for those students who don't understand why they're taking algebra and history and all that, stop asking those questions. That's a stupid question. You need to get in there and learn that stuff. Because the ones on the easiest track in life are the ones on the academic track. Doesn't mean that that's the end of the world if you're not. But that's the easiest problem. Okay, just stay in those books and you'll be all right. But if you're in the C group, you're in the mass group. Those are the ones that got to figure it out. And they say a lot of times business owners are C students.
Yeah, that's the majority.
Majority of them, right? Because they had to figure something out, and they didn't want to get left behind, and they didn't want to be satisfied with some going from job to job. And so they figured out something. They got on to something, and they stuck with it. And they got better at it. Next thing you know, they weren't a rookie anymore. They became a veteran. You know what I'm saying? And then they wanted to leave a legacy and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Man, this was a true pleasure to do this interview with you like this for Grindla. I just hope you continue to stay on your grind. Much love. This is not the end of it.
Yeah.
We'll probably visit you again.
I want you to.
But this time we're coming to eat chicken. We're going to enjoy the honey kettle chicken. Yeah. And I just want to thank everybody who tuned in to Grindla, listeners, watchers. Come back and see us soon. Thank you again, Chef Vinny.
And thank you, Shovon.
But before we go,
okay,
we're going to give you a product, Grindla hat.
Fantastic.
And a t-shirt.
Fantastic.
Grindla. And of course, we're going to stay on our grind. And thank you all once again for joining.
And I so appreciate that.
Absolutely, man.
And it was a lot of fun, and I think we did pretty good.
Man, that was cool.
Clear how my dream in the dark.